all doing well and staying safe at home. I finally got out of my pajamas today to do a read aloud for you guys. I'm going to read Chester's Way by Kevin Henkes. I know you guys recognize that name. Alrighty. So while I'm reading, try to remember the characters in the story and their character traits. Chester had his own way of doing things. Hello, my name is Chester and I like croquet and peanut butter and making my bed. He always cut his sandwiches diagonally. He always got out of bed on the same side. And he never left the house without double knotting his shoes. Chester always had the same thing for breakfast, toast with jam and peanut butter. And he always carried a miniature first aid kit in his back pocket just in case. Miniature means really small. You definitely have a mind of your own, said Chester's mother. That's one way of putting it, said Chester's father. So it sounds like Chester always does the same thing. Chester's best friend Wilson was exactly the same way. That's why they were best friends. Chester wouldn't play baseball unless Wilson played, and they never swung at the first pitch or slid head first. Wilson wouldn't ride his bike unless Chester wanted to, and they always used hand signals. If Chester was hungry, Wilson was too. Some days I can't tell those two apart, said Wilson's mother. Me either, said Wilson's father. It sounds like they're very similar. They do a lot of the same thing. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. They loved to go on picnics. Me too. Once, when Wilson accidentally swallowed a watermelon seed and cried because he was afraid that a watermelon plant would grow inside him, Chester swallowed one too. Don't worry, said Chester. Now, if you grow a watermelon plant, I'll grow one too. Don't worry, that doesn't actually happen. Chester duplicated his Christmas list every year and gave a copy to Wilson, because they always wanted the same things anyways. For Halloween, they always dressed as things that went together. Salt and pepper, 2 mittens on a string, ham and eggs. They really are 2 peas in a pod, said Chester's mother. Looks like it, said Chester's father. In spring, Chester and Wilson shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester, that's the way it was. And then, Lily moved into the neighborhood. Connection. I just made a connection. Who's this? Lily had her own way of doing things. I'm Lily, I'm the queen, and I like everything. She wore band-aids all over her arms and legs to look brave. She talked backwards to herself. Sometimes no one would know what she was saying. And she never left the house without one of her nifty disguises. A disguise is a costume you wear so no one knows who you really are. There's Lily in her disguise. Lily waved at all the cars that passed by, even if she didn't know who was in them. And she always carried a loaded squirt gun in her back pocket, just in case. She definitely has a mind of her own, said Chester. That's one way to put it, said Wilson. I wonder what Chester and Wilson will think of Lily. When Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said they were busy. When she called them up on the phone, they disguised their voices and said they weren't home. Oh, there's that word again, disguised. So they made their voices sound different so she wouldn't know it was them. If Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson crossed to the other and hid from her. She's something else, said Chester. Looks like it, said Wilson. Are Chester and Wilson being very kind? I don't think so. They're not really including her. One day, while Chester and Wilson were practicing their hand signals, some older boys rode by, popping wheelies on their bikes. They circled Chester and Wilson and yelled mean things at them. Uh-oh. Chester and Wilson didn't know what to do, and just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out and frightened the older boys away. Who do we think that is? I'll give you a hint, look at the boots. Are you who I think you are? Chester asked the cat. Of course, the cat replied. It's Lily. Thank you, Lily, said Chester. You're welcome, Chester, said Lily. Thank you, Lily, said Wilson. You're welcome, Wilson. I'm glad you were wearing a disguise, said Chester. And I'm glad you had your squirt gun, said Wilson. I always do, said Lily, just in case. Afterwards, Chester invited Lily over for lunch. You have a Muscle Mouse cup, said Lily. Of course, said Chester. I do too, said Lily. Me too. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson cut their sandwiches diagonally. Lily asked Chester's mother if she had cookie cutters, and she made stars and flowers and bells. That's neat, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. That night, Lily invited Chester and Wilson to sleep over. You have a nightlight, said Chester. Of course, said Lily. I do too, said Chester. Same here, said Wilson. Sounds like they're finding some things that they have in common. Chester and Wilson wanted toast with jam and peanut butter for breakfast the next morning. Boring, said Lily. Try this instead. Wow, this is good, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. Yum, she's showing them new things. After that, when Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said yes. When she called them up on the phone, they had pleasant conversations. And if Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson waved and ran to catch up with her. Chester and Wilson taught Lily hand signals and how to pop wheelies on their bikes. Lily taught Chester and Wilson how to talk backwards, and they taught her how to double knot her shoes. Some days, I can't tell those three apart, said Lily's mother. Me either, said Lily's father. Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester, that's the way it was. For Halloween, they dressed as the three blind mice. For Christmas, Lily gave Chester and Wilson nifty disguises, and they gave her a box of multicolored shoelaces, extra long for double knotting. They loved to go on picnics. When Chester and Wilson told Lily about how they had each swallowed a watermelon seed, Lily swallowed 3 of them. I'll grow a watermelon plant for each of us, she said. In spring, Chester and Wilson and Lily shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. And then Victor moved into the neighborhood. Uh-oh, wonder what's going to happen with Victor. So think about the different characters that we just read about in the story. We have Chester and Wilson and Lily. So at the beginning of the story, Chester and Wilson had their own way of doing things. They did everything together. But then, when they included a new friend, she taught them new things too. And they all became friends. All right, guys. Maybe later today or on Monday, you guys can write about your favorite character in the story and why, and write about their character traits. So my favorite character is Lily, because I like how Lily does things differently. I think that's really special. There's Lily in her red boots. All right, guys. I miss you. I hope you're all doing well at home. All right, hope you're working hard. Bye.